Hello and welcome. You're watching the NewsTrack. I'm Rahul Kanwal. Russia's Lunar 25 has crashed in its quest to reach the moon. Can India pull off what no other country has done so far, ensure a soft landing on the south pole of the moon's surface? 2 days to go. That big story is my top focus on the NewsTrack.
Hold your breath. Final countdown begins. Countdown begins to Chandrayaan-3 landing. Less than 48 hours to moon history. Earth joins India to salute Chandrayaan-3. A nation on the edge of its seats. The moon is ours. That is a big focus on NewsTrack.
We're now in the final countdown to the Chandrayaan-3's landing. The module has established contact with Chandrayaan-2. Every day, the Vikram lander is inching closer to the moon. It will now begin a powered descent on the 23rd of August. Isro has made some critical changes to the project designed to ensure that this time the landing of the Chandrayaan-3 is a big success. India today is tracking the lunar mission live. Here is our lead story.
The Indian Space Research Organization has successfully reduced the orbit of the Chandrayaan-3 mission's lander module Vikram on Sunday. Vikram is on its own journey towards the lunar surface now. Equipped with 4 landing legs and 4 landing thrusters of 800 newtons of force each, Vikram is designed for a soft landing on the moon. It carries within it a rover named Pragyan. Chandrayaan-3 is largely a replica of its predecessor Chandrayaan-2. Chandrayaan-2 was launched in July 2019 in the form of an orbiter and a lander Vikram bearing a rover Pragyan. Vikram entered into orbit around the moon, but the surface mission failed in September 2019. The lander Vikram crashed instead of executing a slow descent. Isro later identified a problem. Based on it this time, Isro has strengthened the lander's legs, lowered its minimum thrust, enhanced the availability of power, and upgraded the landing sequence to a soft landing. The Vikram lander is currently traveling at about 25 kilometers above the lunar surface at a speed of 6,000 kilometers per hour. From this, it needs to come down to a speed of 1 meter per second within seconds. It then further needs to make a sharp 90-degree turn as it starts moving away from its orbit. Isro will need to make some major adjustments at very quick, almost breakneck speeds. To achieve a successful landing, Chandrayaan-3 has lander hazard detection and avoidance cameras that will be used to coordinate with the orbiter and mission control as the lander makes its careful descent approach to the surface of the moon. Vikram, the lander module, also carries Laser Retroreflector Array or LRA. It would carry out a passive experiment to understand the dynamics of the moon system. Once the soft landing is achieved, the rover Pragyan will be deployed on the lunar surface on the south pole to carry out its own research to find evidence of water molecules.
So we are going to measure it for the first time. What is the kind of profile that will be existing? So you have a probe that will be inserted into the lunar regolith. We will penetrate up to around 10 centimeter for probing. Actually 14 centimeter including the tip. The tip will be actually aiding us to penetrate. So 10 centimeter of the lunar surface will be probed, temperature will be measured, and basically it will give you the conductivity. This regolith can be a building block for future space bases, lunar bases.
Chandrayaan-3 is the third installment of the Chandrayaan series and represents India's second attempt to achieve a soft landing on the moon's surface. So far, only 3 countries have successfully landed spacecraft on the airless lunar world. Failure of the recent Russian moon mission has put the limelight back on India's Chandrayaan-3.
Russia is out of the race to land on the south pole of the moon. This was the first Russian mission in the last 47 years. Lunar 25 ended in a crash. Isro was so far in a race with the Russians to be the first space agency to land successfully on the south pole of the moon. Everyone has their fingers crossed, hoping hard that India can achieve what the Russians could not.
As Chandrayaan-3 heads to the moon and will land on August 23rd at 6 p.m., there was another country aiming to land at the exact same place, the moon's south pole, but failed. Russia's first moon mission in 47 years has failed. Russia's Lunar 25 took off for the moon on August 10th, a whole 35 days after Chandrayaan-3 was launched into space, and was expected to reach the moon a day before Chandrayaan. Lunar 25 spacecraft crashed into the moon after spinning into an uncontrolled orbit. Russia's space agency lost contact with Lunar 25 after a technical issue in the spacecraft. Measures taken to locate Lunar 25 were also unsuccessful.
Now, no one will give an answer about what happened explicitly. If we talk about the facts, then when the station entered a circular circumlunar orbit with a height of 100 kilometers, it was flying. Everything was fine. When it was necessary to prepare for landing, the orbit had to be turned into an ellipse, where the shortest distance to the moon should have been 18 kilometers and the longest 100. Such an elongated ellipse. And in order to form this elongated ellipse orbit to lower the altitude, it was necessary to turn the engines forward along the station's flight path and turn on the engines for braking.
The Russian spacecraft was scheduled to land on Monday to explore southern pole of the moon. Lunar 25 was expected to reach the moon in just 12 days, whereas Chandrayaan is taking 40 days. But why is that? Well, the most important factor is the weight. While Chandrayaan-3 weighs a whopping 3,900 kgs, the Lunar 25 is much lighter, weighing just 1,750 kilograms. Now that Russia is out of the race to moon, all eyes are on India's Chandrayaan-3. After successful completion of India's moon mission, India will join an elite league of 3 nations, the United States, Russia and China, to make a soft landing on the moon. Bureau Report, India Today.
I want to go across live and exclusive at this time to K. Sivan, the visionary behind Chandrayaan-2, the man who knows India's moon mission inside out, and the former head of the Indian Space Research Organization. The landing of Chandrayaan-3 means a lot to people across the country, but it will mean more to K. Sivan than it will mean for most, because for him, this is deeply personal. After coming so near with Chandrayaan-2, Mr. Sivan and the whole country saw those images of Mr. Sivan breaking down at the last moment, what he described as the 15 minutes of terror. So to look back at the journey of India's lunar mission as we count down to the landing of Chandrayaan-3, I am delighted and privileged to be joined by K. Sivan on India Today. Mr. Sivan, welcome and thank you so much for your time at what I know will be a very anxious and nervous period for you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to start by asking you about the lunar mission of the Russians, which crashed very unfortunately over the weekend without being able to land successfully. You know, given what has happened with the Lunar 25, which was Russia's first attempt to land a spacecraft off the moon and that ending in failure, you know, would that increase the levels of anxiety of the team in the space center of ISRO at this moment? Does that make you one extra level more anxious?
No, it is not so. First of all, Lunar mission failure and this one, they are not related. Lunar, actually, that is have its own system, its own the sensor, thrusters, and it may have its own characteristics. But we have our own system, our own thruster, our own sensors, which it has been functioning very nicely and without any problem. And till now, we are achieved what we want in a perfect way. And I am sure that this will repeat on 23rd also. So we will get a good landing, and we are not getting disturbed by the Lunar 25 failure. They are not related. They are not a similar system. They are different system.
Okay.
So we are confident that we will be able to achieve without any problem.
Just ahead of the landing of Chandrayaan-2, you described the final phase of the landing as the 15 minutes of terror. Could you explain in layman's language the complexity involved in that final slow descent, and why is it that most of the lunar missions that have gone wrong over the last few years, including the Japanese and the Israeli ones, have gone wrong just at the last stage, it seems?
See, this lunar mission is a very crucial and very critical and very complex, and that's what we are calling this the entire descent process from 25 or 30 kilometers to touchdown is a 15-minute terror. The reason is that is when at the starting of the travel descent, the craft used to move with the velocity of about 2 kilometers per second in the horizontal direction. Now, this velocity has to be reduced in a controlled fashion, within bracket, controlled fashion, to 0. And very interestingly, this 2 kilometers per second velocity is to be made to 0 at the time of touchdown, this one. So what really happened is there's a lunar gravity is acting. At the same time, that is if the thrust is not sufficient, it will fall like a football, or if it is thrusting more, it will go away from the trajectory. And this controlled manner we are bringing to velocity 2 kilometers per second to 0 is a very crucial, and this 0 should be only at the surface of the moon. If it is 0 earlier, it will fall like a football, and if it is non-zero at the time of touchdown, again it's a hard landing. So that way, the whole process is a very meticulous to ensure that the velocity is to be reduced to 0 at the right moment and the time at the right location should be there. That's what we are calling. It's a very critical and very complex process, and that's what we are calling a 15-minute terror.
So it is during the 15 minutes of terror during Chandrayaan-2 that the mission did not go as per plan. Could you tell everyone watching as we count down to the landing of Chandrayaan-3, what are the changes that have been made in an easy to understand fashion without getting into technical and scientific jargon, but just broadly, why are you more confident with Chandrayaan-3 that we will not have a repeat of what happened in the end with Chandrayaan-2?
See, Chandrayaan-2 also went up very well initial portion. In that, really there are 4 distinct phases of landing process. One is the rough braking phase. At that time, the whole thing went up very well. Second one is this attitude hold phase. At that time only this anomaly started. And then we have that fine braking phase and landing phase. So that whatever error corrected during the, where occurred during that attitude to hold phase could not be corrected during the fine braking phase and landing phase, and we end up with a failure. And if you are seeing what really happened was, there was a the thruster of the engine, it was, the dispersion level was more than what we expected before flight. And because of that one, the guidance system malfunctioned. And because of the guidance system malfunction, this control system was trying to correct it, but it was not able to correct it properly because of its own limitation. So all these errors have been corrected now in the Chandrayaan-3, and not only correcting the error, what occurred in that Chandrayaan-2 alone is not the reason, and wherever the design margins are less, that margins have been improved substantially, and at the same time, and wherever possible, that redundancy system is put in. So in case the system got some trouble, if there is an alternative route by which the mission will be executed. So what I am saying is, with respect to the Chandrayaan-2 mission, as we learned from the flight, the Chandrayaan-3 mission is more rugged, and it is having more confidence that it will be success this time and compared to the Chandrayaan-2. That's what reason we are repeatedly telling that it will be success.
Mr. Sivan, what goes through the mind of a top scientist just when you've prepared as hard as you can, you've modeled all the variables, you're hoping for success, and yet you can't quite be certain? We saw how in a very emotional moment you broke down in the arms of Prime Minister Narendra Modi when Chandrayaan-2 had crashed at that time. This is on the 7th of September when the Prime Minister was at the Isro Center. How long did it take for you to recover from that? Did it happen instantly? Is it a matter of a few hours? Were you scarred for weeks, days after that? Could you just talk a bit about the emotional and the personal side of what you went through, sir?
Say that, the ISRO scientists are very, very rugged and robust, this one. And when some disappointment happened, like what happened in the Chandrayaan-2, it will be an instantaneous reaction come to the mind, that emotional will come out. Once that emotion is coming out, that's all, that's over. And we will be leaving those errors and what happened to the thing to the aside, and we will get back to the what really happened and what we need to do further. On Chandrayaan-2 the day also, after the emotional scene, whatever has gone to viral, within that a few minutes, we got into action and gone through the data, what really went wrong, and found out what really gone wrong, reason for the misbehavior, and also that is at that time itself we charted out what other activity we need to do it. So if you are seeing that the Chandrayaan-3 work, it started on Chandrayaan-2 day onwards. It is not like last 1 year or 2 years. The Chandrayaan-3 work started on the afternoon of Chandrayaan-2 mission failure. So from that time onwards we started working, and this is the reason I am telling that the ISRO scientists are always robust, and they will be always coming back from the failure within no time. It has happened for me also on that day.
That's
yes,
amazing.
Once the emotional series over, then get into the problem at the earliest.
We've seen Israel, Japan, and now Russia also not succeed in landing in the moon. Whereas if you go back to the last century, in the latter part of it, for a long time it seemed that getting to the moon was mission accomplished, and then everybody was looking beyond the moon. What are the complexities that make it so uncertain in terms of whether there will be a landing, and why is it that you think that the Israeli, the Russian and the Japanese lunar missions failed?
See, this, as I talked to you earlier, the complexity is there always, either earlier or now. There is no difference in the complexity existence, and there is no difference in the technological challenges involved in the landing, this one. And if you see in the past history also, not all the missions have been success. Definitely their failures were there at that time also. And it is not that all the missions were success, this one. And that process is going on now also. And if you are seeing that the number of the mission gone and number of failure, definitely the ratio would be same earlier and now. There is no change in the technological complexity and the technical toughness. They are same earlier and now also.
What happens once we land on the south side of the moon, in terms of what you hope the lunar probe will actually be able to gather? I was hearing from Amitabh Ghosh, the scientist at NASA, that even once the probe gets out, because the surface is, some places sandy, some places rocky, even the lunar probe vehicle can get stuck. So it's not just the landing, even what happens after that, it's complex all the way through.
Yes, definitely, you are right. This one, it is not only that landing alone. This complexity is there till the lifetime of the mission of that 14 days, this one. And especially the terrain in the southern polar region is much more non-conducive for such type of activities than the equatorial region. So there are some boulders, rocks, sand, all those things are there. But our rover is really designed to take care of such type of environments. That way we are not expecting that it is, even though the environment is...
so I'm curious, how do you simulate this? Like, how do you practice landing the rover without actually being on the moon? Because you're not 100% certain of what the surface is going to be like. So how do scientists practice these kind of things, sir?
No, there is actually that is, it is not that we do not know how that terrain looks like. Through the images what we gathered from the Chandrayaan-2 orbiter mission, we understood and we know the terrain at that location. And those terrain conditions are simulated in the lab level with simulated conditions of that surface of the moon. And under that simulated condition, simulated environment, that is the rover was driven and checked, it functioned without any problem this way.
Okay, finally, before I let you go, what would you in the final hours be most worried about? What are you most concerned about? What would you be thinking about the most at this time, Mr. Sivan?
See, what we used to do is that in all, not only Chandrayaan-3 mission, for all the space missions, we usually do whatever humanly possible. And that's what we did for Chandrayaan-3 also. And once everything is done, simply we will wait for the final moment to come with the fingers crossed. You are asking that, you may ask, why keeping the fingers crossed? You know, that is, even though we know the system very well, in the space system we always used to tell that there are known unknowns and unknown unknowns. These unknown unknowns will happen only in the flight. So to ensure that it is not happening and to ensure that such type of unknown unknowns are not there, simply we will wait with our fingers crossed with anxiety, and that's what going to happen on 23rd also.
Mr. Sivan, for joining us, thank you very much. We wish you all the best. Last time you had tears of sadness. I hope this time you don't cry, but even if you do, those are tears of joy and unbridled happiness. Thank you very much, sir, and we wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The Chandrayaan-3 is aiming to find the perfect spot for a soft landing on the challenging terrain. All eyes are on ISRO Chairman S. Somanath and Project Director P. Veramuthuvel. Here's more about the key team behind India's largest ever space mission.
Here we have a majestic liftoff of LVM-3M. The launch has also added a feather in the cap of LVM-3 rocket.
As Chandrayaan-3 inches closer and closer to the moon, it's our ISRO heroes who've made this possible.
जी हाँ, चंद्रयान को सफलतापूर्वक अंतक्षेपित कर दिया गया है.
We sign off. Up next.
On July 14th, we got a glimpse of our scientists who've toiled for years now to make this mission a reality. Leading Team ISRO is Chairman S. Somnath, who is beaming with pride as his team managed to pull off a picture-perfect launch.
Congratulations, India. Chandrayaan-3 has started its journey towards moon. Our dear LVM-3 has already put Chandrayaan-3 craft into the precise orbit around Earth. 170 by 36,500 kilometers was its intended target orbit, and it is precisely there now. And let us wish all the best for the Chandrayaan-3 craft to make its further orbit racing maneuvers and travel towards moon.
And that's just been the beginning of their dream coming true.
Of ISRO scientists in the mission.
These scientists have had sleepless nights for nearly 40 days now, tracking every update, every maneuver. Leading this project is Director P. Veramuthuvel, who hails from Villupuram in Tamil Nadu. A graduate from IIT Madras, Muthuvel has been dedicated towards building the Chandrayaan spacecraft since 2019.
All our spacecraft health parameters are normal, including the power generations in both propulsion module and lander module. Our journey to moon has begun now for the most awaited soft landing. We'll be closely monitoring and controlling the spacecraft from NewsTrack, Bangalore. Many critical events are lined up, starting from earthbound maneuvers, insertion into the Lunar's orbit, and separation of lander, and set of deboost maneuvers, and finally the power descent phase.
प्रज्वलन और सफलतापूर्ण उत्थापन LVM-3.
Remember that heartwarming moment after the launch when ISRO Chief Somnath and another official simply couldn't hide their excitement? This is LVM Mission Director Mohana Kumar, who was in charge of India's Bahubali, the LVM which sent Chandrayaan-3 soaring into space.
I am very happy to report here that the LVM-3 M4 vehicle has injected the Chandrayaan-3 satellite to the precise orbit, and once again the vehicle is proved to be the most reliable heavy lift vehicle of Indian Space Research Organization. Congratulations to the teamwork of ISRO family.
So who else is part of Team Chandrayaan? The director of Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre, where the LVM-3 was developed, Unnikrishnan Nair, was in charge of several key functions during the launch. U.R. Rao's Satellite Centre Director M. Sankaran is currently leading the satellite fraternity to meet the national requirements and is part of Team Chandrayaan. A. Rajarajan, the director of Satish Dhawan Space Centre in Sriharikota, gave the go-ahead for the launch. It takes an army to build a spacecraft like Chandrayaan-3, and there are so many more scientists who play an integral part of making this dream a reality. Bureau Report, India Today.
The Chandrayaan-3 lunar mission generating massive interest all across the country, and to talk about some of the things that people would be looking out for most carefully and aspects that you should know ahead of the landing of Chandrayaan-3 on Wednesday, I'm joined by Manish Purohit, former scientist at ISRO, well-known space educator. Kavya Karmapuri joins us. Karampuri is a space mission systems engineer and space policy expert. Chaitanya Giri joins us, consultant for space policy and space diplomacy at the Research and Information System for Developing Countries, and Altamas Ali, astronomer at Space India. I want to go to Kavya Karampuri first. Given the huge amount of interest in the landing of the Chandrayaan-3, what is it that you are looking out for most carefully? What would make you most anxious at this moment in terms of what really needs to go right for India to be able to do a soft landing on the south side of the moon successfully?
Right. Chandrayaan-3, when you're talking about it, it just holds a very important place in the entire Indian space program. And the major objective of the Chandrayaan-3 is to demonstrate its capabilities to soft land on the lunar surface, and which we unfortunately missed out on Chandrayaan-2. And to go like to for the things to turn out right and for us to land on the moon, I think the major important part would be the descent, the powered descent from its current orbit of 25 cross around 100 kilometers to the landing. So this is the most important phase of the entire mission, I would say, because you'll have to control the lander in terms of its velocity, in terms of its attitude control, and everything. So I think that would be the most important period between the current orbit to its landing.
Manish Purohit, the Russians were hoping that with Lunar 25, they would be the first ones to get to the south side of the moon. Given that that didn't happen, the stakes have been upped even further. What does the crash over the weekend of the Lunar 25, in your view, mean for the team at Isro that's currently working on this project?
See, actually, that was a very unfortunate event, but Luna 25 crashed in that particular point, which we have already done on 18th and 20th of August. They were deboosting it. They were trying to bring the orbit down. They were trying to come down from 100 kilometer by 100 kilometer orbit to the 18 kilometer by 100 kilometer orbit. But ISRO's Chandrayaan-3 has already done that twice, one on 18th and next on 20th. So we are way ahead of that phase. Right now, we are just focusing on the power descent part that will be on 23rd. So the pressure part is like, scientific community is kind of immune to the pressures that can come out from outside world. They might get some pressure when the systems and subsystems are not responding. So I can visualize that part when we got that news that Roscosmos has lost the contact with Luna 25. Now that's the pressure that builds up on the scientific community. And regarding the expectations of the country or the nation or the world, but then scientific things, scientific endeavors, they carry both the aspects together. It's not always, we can't say it's a failure. We get to know so many things. If you take the case of Chandrayaan-2, we learned so many things we learned that this time our confidence is so high that our chairman, Somnath sir, is saying that what may ever happen, we are going to land on moon. So these failures, these mishaps, these things, they are the gateway to something new to learn, and we learn so many things about our algorithm, about our sensors, about our they're called reaction wheels, which turn the orientation of the spacecraft, and we learn so many things about our engine thrusters. See, because coming of the age, ISRO is planning to open up to the global community. We have our own new space policy that says that we have to penetrate at the global level in the global space economy. Right now we are at 2%. We want it to be 9% by 2030. So with these all technological improvements, with these all demonstrations of our capabilities, then only we can dream to achieve such big goal, because right now space economy stands at 400 plus billion USD, and 50 to 60% of that will be in the service segment, which is forte of India.
Altamas Ali, there was no immediate and direct comparison between the Luna mission and the Indian Space Research Organization's Chandrayaan probe, but comparisons are inevitable. And whether the scientists accept or not, just in the way people view, there is an element of competition, because the Russians could have been, had they landed on the 22nd of August, the first country to reach the south side of the moon. Now that could be India. Why do you think nobody else has reached there? Why did the Israeli, the Japanese missions before this fail? And why is the part of the moon where India is hoping to land so interesting and yet so complex?
Yes, see, this is very unfortunate event. In scientific community, we are not in that kind of competition, like we are doing this and that. But apart from that, keeping that aside, we are hoping for the soft landing of our Chandrayaan-3, because we have learned so many things from our previous experiences. This is one of the strengths that we are going to get this time. Like, we are that much confident, as my preceding speaker has also quoted, that the chairman has said, the ISRO's chairman has said that no matter what, we are going to land. because this time, removing all the barriers that we have faced the last time, we have the backup plans in terms of softwares and in terms of the advancement in the engines of the lander, and so many things. The lag testings is one of the part. We have tested them thoroughly with all the possibilities, and with all the information that we have got from the Chandrayaan-2 orbiter is one of the plus point that we are looking forward to, and that is helping us and will help us to land. And yet we are very close to this to the soft landing, and like I'm hoping, and we are pretty much sure that this time we will land. We will be experiencing the
What Chaitanya Giri, what gives scientists this extra level of confidence, given what happened in Chandrayaan-2, and of course we've tried to learn from those failures? How is it that from the current ISRO chief, the past ISRO chief, all our guests on this show, all of them are seeking to exude the kind of confidence they are? Where does this confidence come from?
See, this confidence comes from a lot of resilience that is inbuilt into a scientist's mind, the go-getter attitude which is built into them. And you have examples set in the past. You know, there are countries, there are space agencies that have landed on Mars, they have landed on Venus, which is a not so hospitable planet. We've landed on a comet. I've been part of a mission where we landed on a comet, and a comet is much smaller. We've picked up samples from the asteroids. We brought those samples back. So this is humanly possible. The issue that arises occasionally is the glitch in the last moments, in the last minutes of terror, as we call it. So those glitches are something that is part and parcel of life, and we are all prepared for it. But as was said by the earlier speaker, just landing is not enough. You have to survive on the really inhospitable climate on the moon. There's no atmosphere. The temperature variations are tremendous. The daytime temperature, the nighttime temperature. If your lander or if your rover goes into the darker terrains where there is no sunlight, you run the chance of not recharging the batteries, the solar batteries that are on your rover. So the challenges don't end with the landing. And this is what I hope that ISRO will get to experience, the post-landing challenges, because that is where the next set of challenges lie. I'm afraid I'm repeating the words. The next set of challenges that we have to explore the moon, we have to explore resources that are available on the moon. These are the stepping stones for human spaceflight to the moon, and I'm sure in the next decade or so, we will begin the efforts that are to take Indian astronauts to the moon. And this is not the end of it. Landing is not the end of it.
Manish Purohit, where do we stand in your view relative to the kind of advancements made by, say, China, the United States, India, Japan, Israel, the other France, the other key space powers? At this moment, in your estimate, what would be India's position in the global space pecking order?
See, right now we have a lot of ground to cover, for sure. There's no doubt about that. China, they are planning to land their crew. They are planning a crewed mission to moon. Artemis is already in the plans. If you talk about, let's take moon as our reference, and Roscosmos, this was their 25th mission to the moon. Ours is the 3rd attempt. So there's a lot of ground to cover, but the best part about it is the intent, the confidence that right now our scientists, our scientific community is posing with. The particular positive aspect of it is private players are right now being called up to build the capacity, because capacity building is very important. Let's compare with few data points. If you take SpaceX is having, for year 2023, they have launched around 6 to 7. They had 6 to 7 launches every month. And this is something big right now for ISRO. So what we have to do is we have to open up our sector, and that's what has been rightly done with our new space policy. We are doing the technology transfer to the private players. We have a few, private companies, their launches are coming up. They are going to demonstrate their capabilities. So these things will slowly build up, and once we will have a really good example where a private player delivers what it promises, then this sector will see a humongous boost. I'm telling you this thing. And the biggest aspect when we compare different countries, let's say we compare America, we compare China, we take the European nations. They have been in this market. They have been launching our satellites for last 30-40 years. They were the ones who were taking our satellites. We got the capacity to lift off with a 1,000 kg class satellite in 1990s. Before that, all our heavy satellites, more than 1,000 kgs or 2,000 kgs, they were taken up by their launch vehicles. So we have covered a lot of ground, but still, lot many things have to be done. We are working on reusable launch vehicles. We are working on vertical liftoff and vertical landing launch vehicles. We are working on a crew module, Gaganyaan. Hyperspace, let's take example. Hyperspace is a private entity that manages some part of International Space Station, and they have recently signed one MOU with ISRO. They are exploring the possibilities. So slowly, we are, taking small steps, but gradually they will convert into big leaps.
Kavya Karampuri, let's spend a moment on what happens after the landing. It's not just about the slow descent, which is incredibly complex, also the probe going out. What do you think would be the key thing to look out for in terms of what the probe potentially comes back with?
Right, we are looking to understand they say the moon doesn't have an atmosphere, but the atmosphere, there is a layer of atmosphere that is at a very close proximity to the lunar surface. We're trying to understand basically that particular area where the gases that are the regolith surface above the area above the regolith surface, where the gases are present, the gases are emitting out of the surface and are ionized in the particular area. So that is where the scientific objective comes in, and also the rover, the lander would also try to understand the seismic activity going on the moon. That is the vibrations. You send an instrument onto the surface and try to understand the vibrations on the moon and try to understand the tectonic and the seismic activities on the moon. And with the rover, you try to understand the mineralogical aspects of the surface of the moon, and also understand the topography of the moon.
Altamas Ali, explain the significance to our viewers of being on the south side of the moon. Why this is the less explored part of the moon? Why is it more complex to get there, and why this mission then becomes so critical?
Yes, it is really important that we are going to land on the south pole of the moon, because it is yet very much, it is not yet explored much. And this could open the gates to so many advancement in research. Like there could be a number of possibilities finding the minerals of the importance that could support the life as well. Like in Chandrayaan-1, the impactor, when it hit the South Pole Jawahar point that we say on the Shackleton crater, we have found this rough evidence of the presence of water on the South Pole. So which is why after this particular discovery, it has become a point of importance and a choice to all the agencies. Like you have seen Roscosmos, the space agency, or Russian space agency, they are also much invested in this, and they have dedicated this particular mission to the South Pole only. And after this discovery of Chandrayaan-1, we have sent the Chandrayaan-2 and 3. On the other hand, we are looking forward to. So this will be a kind of marking the territory on the south pole of the moon, and will become the first country. This will be a kind of honor as well, and this is to show the might of ISRO that we are able to land on an unexplored area where we have set up everything from the scratch, and we can do this.
Okay, we've all got our fingers crossed, our hearts in our mouths, and hoping for the very best. I mean, the task needs to be done by the scientists at ISRO. They're super sharp, very plugged in, very committed to this national cause. We'll track what happens. For the time being, Chaitanya Giri, Manish Purohit, Kavya Karampuri and Altamas Ali for joining me on the News Track. Thank you very much. We wish all of you in the scientific community the very best. Thank you. We're slipping into a break. When we come back, Delhi Cobb's nab, rape-accused Delhi bureaucrat, his wife arrested for giving abortion pills to the minor victim. That shocking story coming up on the other side.
biggest conflict zones,
We are at the hostile airbase and this is
to the biggest international moments. A reporter with India's flag on his sleeve and an unrelenting eye on terror, defense and national security. On the road, up the heights, in the trenches, he brings you stories that must unite us. Because when it's national interest, it's India first. Monday to Friday 10 p.m. only on India Today TV.
कर्नाटक कांग्रेस के लीडर डीके शिव कुमार ने बिना कोर्ट के कंसल्टेशन के साथ या कोई ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग के साथ उन्होंने 10 टीएमसी कावेरी वाटर रिलीज करने का ऐलान कर दिया है। तो एक प्रश्न उठता है कि ये क्यों किया? ये जब बैकग्राउंड ऑफ डिस्ट्रेस, फार्मर डिस्ट्रेस इतना प्रोनाउंस्ड है और सबको देखने को मिल भी रहा है, देखने को बड़ा विजिबल सा भी है, ये क्यों कर रहे हैं? और इसका सीधा जवाब, साफ जवाब यह है कि वो घमंडिया गठबंधन / यूपीए के सीनियर पार्टनर डीएमके के प्रेशर से इन्होंने पानी रिलीज किया है।
Quality today. In Delhi, 139. In Mumbai, 66. In Kolkata, 70. In Bangalore, 48. In Chennai, 158. In Hyderabad, 98.
In politics, everyone has an opinion, but I have the data. Whose stock is rising? Whose graph is falling? Track India's political stock exchange. Unmatched, unmissable data analytics. The only show on News TV where numbers do the talking. India's most credible poll tracker. The political stock exchange. With Rahul Kanwal, only on India Today. The Deputy Director of Delhi's Women and Child Development Panel is in police custody for raping a minor over several months. The bureaucrat had taken the minor girl in his care after her father passed away. When the minor got pregnant, the Babu's wife gave her abortion pills. Shockingly, the Delhi Commission of Women, headed by Swati Maliwal, says it had no idea about the predator till today.
Premode Khaka, Deputy Director of Women and Child Welfare Department in Delhi government, tasked to safeguard women and kids in the national capital. This protector turned predator raped and impregnated a 14-year-old girl in his custody. While shockingly, his wife gave abortion pills to the teen. After India Today's report, the husband-wife duo has been taken into custody.
आज हमने 164 का बयान लिया है और उसके बाद हमने 2 लोगों को अभी अरेस्ट किया है। एक हैं श्री प्रमोद खाका, 51 साल उम्र है, बुराड़ी के रहने वाले हैं और ये डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ वुमेन एंड चाइल्ड डेवलपमेंट में डिप्टी डायरेक्टर की पोस्ट पे है। सेकंड इनकी वाइफ हैं, सीमा रानी उनका नाम है, 50 साल उम्र है और शी इज़ ए हाउस वाइफ।
The minor survivor was living with the accused after her father's death in 2020. After the bureaucrat met her at a Delhi church and convinced her mother that he will be guardian to the child.
किसका सस्पेंशन होना है, किसकी गिरफ्तारी होनी है? इस पूरे मामले में एक बच्ची को उसकी बायोलॉजिकल मदर से छीनकर किसी दूसरे व्यक्ति को दिया गया और उस व्यक्ति ने बच्ची को रेप किया। तो इसमें जिस अधिकारी की कोताही है उन सब पर मुकदमा दर्ज किया जाना।
The heinous crime by a top Delhi government official answerable to Delhi Minister Atishi and DCW Chief Swati Maliwal sparked a massive storm. Facing political attacks over inaction and hypocrisy over child rape.
We have issued a notice to the Delhi police. We are also issuing a notice to the government because we wish to understand. One is, of course, this means a person needs to be suspended, which the government has already done. But at the same time, we wish to understand as to where all was he posted in his 20 or plus years of service, and what all sensitive posts did he handle, and what kind of complaints were received against him during this process.
The opposition BJP tore into the AAP as sources in the LG house revealed that the rapist officer was handpicked by the Kejriwal government to serve as OSD to Women and Child Development Minister Atishi.
दिल्ली की जनता जो उनसे एक्सपेक्ट करती है कि दिल्ली सरकार उनके अधिकारों का हनन नहीं करेगी, दिल्ली सरकार का एक वरिष्ठ अधिकारी ये करता रहा एक बच्ची के साथ और उनको जानकारी नहीं थी, और जानकारी थी तो क्या कार्रवाई की।
डीसीडब्ल्यू की चेयरमैन तो जहां भी कोई घटना होती है हर जगह आंसू बहाने पहुंच जाती हैं, लेकिन उनके ऑफिस के अंदर अगर ये घटना हो रही है और वो 1-1.5 साल से, जो मुझे सुनने में आया 1-1.5 साल से ये घटना हो रही थी और ऐसे किया जा रहा था, तो उनको नॉलेज नहीं है, तो समझ में नहीं आई मुझे तो।
After political attacks and widespread outrage, Chief Minister Kejriwal suspended the accused rapist.
उसको मैंने आदेश दिए हैं चीफ सेक्रेटरी को कि उसको सस्पेंड किया जाए तुरंत प्रभाव से, जब तक इंक्वायरी वगैरह चल रही हैं, और शाम 5 बजे तक मैंने इसके ऊपर एक विस्तृत रिपोर्ट मांगी है। मैं पुलिस से वो करूंगा, अपील करूंगा कि उसको तुरंत गिरफ्तार किया जाए।
Has the capital shocker exposed the AAP government bigwigs who go about preaching on rape when it comes to crimes in other states? With Arvind Ojha and Rahul Gautam in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
This is where we wrap up the NewsTrack tonight. For your time and your trust, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. Till then, from all of us here, goodbye, good night.
सबसे ज़्यादा जो लद्दाख में ज़मीन गई वो तो नेहरू जी के शासनकाल में गई। एक कदम तक नहीं उठाया, इतनी सरकारें थी कांग्रेस की। आप ना सेना पे मानते हैं, ना आप इस पे जवाबदेही देते कि हज़ारों स्क्वायर किलोमीटर चले गए, लेकिन किसी की सुनी सुनाई पे आप कहते हो ये तथ्य है, तो ये तो राहुल गांधी जी की सोच के ऊपर में ज़्यादा प्रश्न उठेगा। उन कितने वो परिपक्व इस चीज़ों को और क्या उनका व्यवहार है, ये उस पर दर्शाता है।
लद्दाख में भी पेंगवान लेक तक चीन ने अपना कब्जा बना लिया है, उसके एविडेंस भी सामने आए हैं। लेकिन अगर हमारे डिफेंस मिनिस्टर, हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ये बात मानने को तैयार नहीं है, तो लगता है ये भारत माता के साथ एक प्रकार से हम लोग नाइंसाफी कर रहे। मैं बेईमानी नहीं बोलूँगा, नाइंसाफी कर रहे। और राहुल जी ने बात कही है कि चाइना ने अपनी जमीन कब्जे में लिया है, तो उसके ऊपर प्रधानमंत्री हो या डिफेंस मिनिस्टर हो, कोई लोगों को गुमराह करने की जरूरत नहीं है, सच बताइए, यही राहुल जी का कहना है।
मुझे लगता है कि राहुल गांधी जी को एक बार इतिहास उठा करके ये पढ़ लेना चाहिए कि उनके नाना के ज़माने में कितनी ज़मीन गई थी, उनकी दादी के ज़माने में कितनी ज़मीन गई थी, उनके पिताजी के समय में कितनी गई थी, और जो गई थी जिसकी वो चर्चा कर रहे हैं वो उसी समय की गई हुई थी। ये एक बार इतिहास उठा करके पढ़ लीजिए। नरेंद्र मोदी जी का भारत है, यहाँ 1 इंच तो छोड़ दीजिए, आंख उठा करके भी भारत की सीमा की तरफ देखने वाले की हम आंखें निकाल लेंगे, और ये हमने करके दिखाया।
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
इनके जो लोकल गार्डियन थे उनकी वाइफ, इसको इसने बताया तो शी टोल्ड ऑफ द रॉन्ग एक्ट ऑफ हर लोकल गार्डियन, जो हमारा अभी अक्यूज्ड है, जो लेटर फाउंड आउट टू बी डिप्टी डायरेक्टर इन वुमेन चाइल्ड डेवलपमेंट दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट में है। वो जो उनकी वाइफ थी उन्होंने इसको अबॉर्शन पिल्स भी दी हैं। उसके बाद में ये इसके मदर को इसने बताया तो वो यहाँ अपने घर पे ले आई। थोड़ा स्ट्रेस, पैनिक, टेंशन में रहती थी। अभी ऑफ लेट अगस्त में फर्स्ट वीक में जब ज़्यादा पैनिक अटैक हुए तो इनको हॉस्पिटल में लेकर गई इनकी मदर। तो डायग्नोस के दौरान जो साइकेट्रिस्ट हैं उन्होंने जब अपना इनकी काउंसलिंग और इनकी जो मीडिएशन करी है उसमें ये बात निकल के आई है। डॉक्टर साहब ने पूरा कंफर्म करते हुए ये बताया है कि इस तरीके से इनका एक्ट हुआ है। इनकी स्टेटमेंट पे हमने पॉक्सो और जो रिलेटिव सेक्शंस हैं उसके चलते इस पे केस दर्ज किया है।
Sorry.
मिले दिल मेरा तुम्हारा तो देश बने हमारा। यूपी के माफिया बुलडोजर से डर के मिट्टी में मिले, चैन की सब सांस लेके खुशियां झलके झलके मिले दिल मेरा तुम्हारा। मिट जाए दर्द घट जाए मरज, मुफ्त मिले सब क्या है हरज। ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸੁਰ ਮਿਲੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਦਿਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਜੋ ਬੋਲੇ ਸੋ ਨਿਹਾਲ, ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।